If you clicked on this video, you probably want to learn about the French Revolution. So, we will begin by talking about the king, Louis XVI, and later his wife, Marie Antoinette. So, if you looked at my picture of Louis XVI, you would think that he's really rich and that France was a really rich country, but you're wrong. You see that French was helping out the Americans by sending in troops and ships and whatnot. That meant France needed to build back their army. And because they built back their army, they lost a lot of money. So by 1789, France was in an economic crisis. People were hungry and starving, while the king and the queen was jazzing it up, along with the nobility and the clergy. There was an ineffective tax system where the taxes mainly taxed the lower class, and the rules also included a lot of tax exemptions for the nobility and the clergy. And so the common people were very unhappy about not only the tax, but the fact that they were starving, and they complained to the king. The king proposed to tax the nobility, but the nobility refused to cooperate, and the first and second estate said to assemble the Estates General. There were three estates: the nobility, the clergy, and the common people. The clergy and nobility wanted votes per estate, giving them a 2-to-1 advantage, but the common people wanted votes per person, giving them a strong advantage. But the clergy and nobility was not able to agree to that, so the third estates left and assembled by themselves, which later became the National Assembly. Now, the king did not like this at all, and he ordered to close the meeting hall so they could no longer assemble. But that only angered the people, and they broke into an indoor tennis court and they decided to meet there instead. The king realized that whatever he does to try to stop them, it only gets much worse and they get more angry. So he let them assemble. Coincidentally, at the same time, French troops were emerging in the city because they were coming back from war. And the city people feared that the king ordered them to get rid of the revolution, and on July 14th, they decided to break into the Bastille to arm themselves to protect against any major threats. And that's when the Reign of Terror, in my opinion, begins. The National Assembly wrote the Declaration of Rights of Man and Citizen. And that angered a lot of women because the rights didn't apply to women or slaves. By October, crowds of angry women were crowding outside the Versailles, and the next day they stormed it, killing several guards. The women demanded that the king and queen move to Paris, so they did. But later on, the king started fearing for his safety, so he and his wife dressed up as servants and tried to flee the country, but got captured and was sent back to Paris to go under house arrest. But after all this, no problems that they had at the beginning was solved. People are still hungry and France is still poor. So Louis XVI decided to declare war on Austria, because why not? Because in his perspective, it was a win-win situation. If France won, they can plunder Austria's wealth and take some of their grain, and most importantly, the king will look good and he might have more power. And if they lost, Austria was just going to put Louis XVI back into power and overthrow the revolution. So it was a win-win. And then the general of the Prussian army, the Duke of Brunswick, he makes the Brunswick Manifesto, which basically says, I intend to overthrow the revolution, and I also intend to put the king back in power. So many people were upset by this, so they decided to break into the king's home, well, mainly the Jacobins. They decided to break into the king's home and kill their guards and capture the king, and then they imprisoned him. And in August, the assembly declared a republic. They are saying that Louis XVI is no longer king and France will never have a king ever again. And after the threat of putting the king back in power, they decided to kill the king with a guillotine. So that made it hard to put the king back to the throne now that he's dead. And after that, it was all chaos, because at this point, if you can kill the king, you can kill anyone you want. So after the king got executed, anyone that wasn't supporting the revolution or wanted the monarchy to stand back up again got executed, and even suspicion of not supporting the revolution could get you executed. And by the next year, over 16,000 people were executed. And also, Marie Antoinette got executed 9 months after her husband.